What happens is, as we get inflamed, the body, inflammation is a fire to the body.
And they're calcified too, right?
Right. What happens is the everything starts to dry out, the arteries start to crack, the body brings in platelets to heal it, and then calcifies over it. And with cholesterol, they blame it on the cholesterol. It's the inflammation that's creating the cracks in the arteries.
I agree with that. As a matter of fact, there was a research study done years ago, Doctor, that talked about calcification, inflammation, and apparently nanobacteria, which also has a devastating effect in the heart.
Well, they blame it on that, but those bacteria don't have a mind. They're doing something for whatever reason that's going on. If they're in a stagnant pond, their toxin is trying to clean it up so they can get the food. So it's not. We keep on coming back to the bacteria, and I don't like it that way at all. I look at it completely the other way. It's the terrain it's living in. It's the pond that's living in is much more important than the germ.
Would you be considered a rogue physician?
Yeah. Rogue, maverick, I've been talked about that. But the work that I do it's been around for 50 years. This is not new work. Okay? This has just been blinded in the United States by the pharmaceutical industry.
A lot of it's common sense, isn't it?
It's so common sense. It's so much simpler. Medical textbooks are thousands of pages. My book is a couple hundred pages. It explains more and understanding how the body does than the medical textbooks. The medical textbooks give you names to things and then tell you what box to put it in and how to treat it. And the name of the game is the name. And frankly, they're so far off. It's incredible. It's so much simpler if you look at how wonderful this body is. And if you can keep it in shape, boy, it does. It heals itself. It's an incredible machine.
Tell me about the Arizona Homeopathic Medical Practice Act that you help co-author.
Okay, well, we have in the United States, essentially, like in California, first of all, we have 5 licensed practitioners, and yet insurance will pay for only one of them. We have MDs, osteopaths, chiropractors, naturopaths, and acupuncturists. When I was in Arizona, healthcare is states' rights. So what was going on is the insurance companies would not, they'd pay if I cut your heart out, but they would not pay if I fixed your heart in your chest. I actually went up to the head of Blue Cross Blue Shield and talked to him about that. And there's no way they were going to do that. I got together, several of us got together, 5 of us got together. We raised our fees $5 a patient. We bought the best lobbyists in the state. And then it took us about a year, but I frankly gave a check to every single legislator in the state, and we got the law passed. And what the law states, you must be an MD first, or a licensed osteopath first, before you can go and understand work, become a homeopathic physician. Once you're a homeopathic physician, you're now licensed under an agency that understands that. When I was licensed under the medical agency, they would come after me for everything. The homeopathic agency, now we have people looking at alternative stuff, now have a freedom to work. It was one of my proudest accomplishments to allow the freedoms in Arizona. What can be done in Arizona? We set it up, for example, the FDA controls everything. We set it up that any product that's been in use for more than 10 years in the world is called the proving of its effectiveness. So we legalized any product around the world is more effective.
That was brilliant. We talk about some of the work of Big Pharma, Harvey. They seem to be threatened by holistic medicine. How come?
Well, of course. That's the way they make their money. I don't use pharmaceutical remedies. I use natural remedies. That's part of the... this is why I think we're brainwashed. It's the system. They have the money to all these commercials saying experts say this, and it's a totally controlled system, and we really don't see the truth. And pharmacies, these are foreign chemicals. Again, I said before, there's no such thing as a side effect. If you put something in your mouth, you will have a direct effect. If it's a foreign chemical, 9 out of 10 will be negative effects. And now 4 or 5 doctors giving you that. It's horrendous what's going on. When I went to medical school, people maybe 1 medicine. Now people, the average Medicare patient is on 9.5 medicines.
9.5?
That's the average Medicare patient. Unbelievable today. And every one of them is a poison.
What's that cost them?
Oh, well, first of all, Medicare is costing the government. It's costing the taxpayers, that type of thing. Sure. That's the real key behind it. But no, the pharmaceutical industry, during our economic stress, the pharmaceutical industry is still skyrocketing.
Well, the pharmaceutical industry, that's how they make their money. They develop new market share when they come up with more products that work or don't work.
And, they always have, you watch on TV, this beautiful woman dancing through the woods. Side effects are death, homicide, suicide, this, that. But yet she's happy with this. It's incredible. And people just watch this, and they're just so bullied by the system. Okay? And again, pharmaceutical medicine may be able to control certain things like blood pressure, but it hasn't cured anything.
Well, and they say the side effects so quickly at the end of the commercial, you can't even understand what they're saying.
That's right, and it's all brushed in there. And again, remember, and the audience should remember, these are not side effects. These are direct effects, and they will have to happen if you take it long enough.
Why does the U.S. rank 37th in healthcare?
Well, that's because the reason cure is not allowed to be used. If a doctor uses the word cure in his office, they will take his license away, since they've never cured anything. It's all pharmaceutical dominated. The French use stem cells that you can drink. Okay, we're so far behind on things like that. The French are number one. They get 37. There are so many countries ahead of us that you've never even heard of them, which is amazing to me. We're also number one in costs and number 72 in delivery. And if you look at the World Health Organization, they'll show you those rankings.
With all the wealth we have, we're ranked that poorly.
That poorly. Amazing. And you'll see third and fourth world countries that are ranked ahead of us. Joy of this practice, when I got into this type of work, my patients get better. Someone asked me, what's your cure rate? And my answer was, I have a cure rate. Do you? Okay? Yeah. The highest goal of physicians should be to discharge their patient, and no one does that. It's so foreign in the United States, it's incredible. I had a patient come in today. She was a young gal, 28 years old, rheumatoid arthritis. I've been treating her for 2 months. She'd come in with a cane, come in with crutches. Today she came in and walked in. I was so excited.
Now, all right, how did you approach that? What did you do?
Well, rheumatoid arthritis is a lot of waste products get into the joints. And you have to figure out why the waste products weren't eliminated, why are they going into the joints? And hers really came with birth trauma and then surgeries. And surgeries are just a block in the field. We have 5 diaphragms in the body. The whole body is expanding contraction. We have one in the pelvis. We have the diaphragm that we all know. Our throat works like a diaphragm, and the brain actually has 2 diaphragms. The whole system is constantly expanding and contracting. Any surgery will block that, will tie it up, and that really weakens the body dramatically.
Now, why does surgery do that?
Well, it's a scar. I put a knife into you, it's going to form a scar. Scars will then pull everything from the side, whatever it is. It keeps on, the scars keep on expanding, and they cause adhesions or blocks, and vessels don't get through, nerves don't get through, so it's like a block to the flow.
Yeah, it's like a wall, isn't it?
It's a wall. And what it creates, that wall creates trapped inflammation. That's the key. Trapped inflammation starts to weaken the body. Inflammation heals it, but when it's trapped, it's the wind-up toy running against the wall and eventually running out of gas.
So what do you do for people?
I treat the scars using, scar therapy, it's called neurotherapy, and then I use remedies then to heal the inflammation, and then we use osteopathic and structural philosophy to get the body pumping again, and the body will start to eliminate waste and will repair itself. If you cut yourself, the body will heal it and repair it. We get the body set up that can do it, and we help it do it. Okay, so you're treating the scars. To me, the first thing I look at, person's got Lyme disease in 2007, 2006, they had their hysterectomy, they had this surgery. I treat the surgery, and son of a gun, the Lyme disease disappears.
That's interesting. You must be one of the few to do this.
They're becoming more and more. I want to get more students. By the way, if there's physicians around there, one of the things that took me years to learn this, we want to hook up and link up microscopes through and have webinars that we can Skype the whole thing. And in fact, if I had a drop of blood, I saw your show earlier tonight, we could Skype that and you'd see things moving in the blood. Incredible. I want to set up an international network where we can start to communicate, because there are doctors in Thailand, they're in Africa, they're in Norway. There's very few in the United States, but they're getting more and more.
What has been, for you in your career, the most miraculous turnaround in somebody's health that you've ever seen?
Oh, really honestly, I've had so many turnarounds of things when you see a person. I think the best one was probably the gal that came to me was a Christopher Reeve quadriplegic. And she was at the age of 19. She was raped and thrown off a cliff and broke her neck.
Oh, my God.
And right now, last summer, she pedaled on the back of a tandem bicycle 1,000 miles through Europe. She doesn't have great balance, so she had to use a tandem bicycle on the back of it. I got her picture on her website. She'll tell you about the story. It took us 3 weeks. We got her out of the wheelchair. It was the most miraculous case I've ever seen.
What'd you do?
Well, it was part... The flows to the cerebral spinal fluid were blocked, and that feeds the system. As soon as we start to treat the injuries and open up the flows, the body will start to regenerate, and we started to stimulate it. And the first week we treated her, she came back in, and she felt the shower in her back. She hadn't felt that in years. The second week, she was laughing and crying because she had period cramps. She hadn't felt that in years. The third week, she came into the clinic, pushed herself over the side of the desk, put a hand on the desk, stood up, and took 3 steps, and we all dropped our mouths in total disbelief. And I have a picture of her slides. I took nerves grew for 3 weeks and fibers grew for 3 weeks on her slide.
Well, so what did you do to make that work for her? Well,
part of it is the use of the concept of a stem cell type of stimulation. I did this when I was in Mexico. In Mexico, in Baja, it's a free trade zone, so I can order stuff from around the world, and I got some products from Europe that started to stimulate the growth of that spinal cord. And that was the first one we ever did that with, and when she stood up, I mean, it was still the single most chilling day I've ever had in practice. The most difficult thing to regenerate is the nervous system. Anything else is really easy to regenerate. So, but if it's the tailbone, the whole body is really pumping. The tailbone actually moves about a millimeter, 8 to 10 times a minute, and is pumping the fluid up and down, the cerebral spinal fluid around the canal and around the brain. And if that's not flowing right, the nerve supply, wherever it is that's not getting that fluid, will start to weaken.